Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield coming at you again just after 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm always here at this time doing this thing with the same company. My big brother, Rich. Rich, how are you doing tonight?
It's about time to breathe in that smell of free agency.
Free agency. Yeah, we're in it.
At least it's that smell of back to football action.
Yeah, I know what you mean. This is going to shape the Steelers' 2021 season as much as anything right now. And right now, okay, we might be in the situation where it's darkest before the dawn. Right now, we're kind of in mourning of some of our players that we've lost and things of that. And that's what we're going to spend this show doing tonight. We're going to be talking about what's happening with those
players, not mourning.
No, not mourning. We're going to be talking about what's happened. We're going to talk about the losses. We're going to talk about the gains. We're going to talk about what this means with other stuff. It's just how it goes right now because we're in that legal tampering period. Technically, none of these deals are official because they can't be until Wednesday at 4 p.m. when the new league year kicks in. But this is how everything's set up. They're pretty much are. I mean, I'm trying
basically
to
the contract sitting there, the signature either the signature has to go on or it just has to be at 4 o'clock. Here you go, league office. Here's the contract.
Exactly. I'm trying to remember. I don't follow the NBA at all, but I remember a few years ago, it was a center, and I'm thinking it was for the Clippers or somebody that they were. So I think the Mavericks were going to sign away, and he had agreed to it. And then some of the players showed up to his house and wouldn't leave and didn't leave with him until he changed his mind and came back and signed the deal with them.
That is correct.
Am I right? Who was it? Do you remember that?
DeAndre Jordan.
Oh, that's the name. It was DeAndre Jordan. See, I don't follow the NBA. I don't watch the NBA, but I remember that story that they went over.
I don't follow a whole lot, but that was a big time story going on. So I was kind of following that.
So now they haven't had that in the NFL. But the other thing is, do you remember when they used to? Well, I mean, it's funny. We're in the legal tampering period right now, which means before noon on Monday, it was the illegal tampering period, which is what was happening anyway, which always happens, which used to happen all the time before. They just made it legal for a little bit more than 2 days. I guess 52 hours, I guess it would be, since it starts at noon on Monday. But do you remember when free agency used to start at midnight?
Yes, I remember that. My gosh. The
reason I remember is
Aren't you glad that's not the case since you've been working for Behind the Steel Curtain?
Exactly. But you love this story because for everyone who's ever been a part of our show before, which, we've got a lot of you here in the live chat and everything, that how we end the show. So it's going to involve the end of the show, if you know what I mean. Because it was when Rex Ryan was hired as the head coach of the Jets. He had been the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. Am I right? Am I getting this right?
Correct.
Yes. And he shows up at midnight in the driveway of one Bart Scott in order to sign him as a free agent at midnight. He's waiting outside his house at midnight for the stroke of midnight to sign him to his new team of the New York Jets. And I'm like, that's just crazy. I'm kind of glad they don't do it that way anymore. But I guess he really couldn't wait. So sorry. But I remember that. So this is interesting how this is all going down. But before we get started and dive in, I've got to give a hard time to one Brian Anthony Davis, our podcast producer here behind the Steel Curtain, because thank you. I see Thaddeus is in the live chat. Thank you, Thaddeus, for tipping me off. I was not unable to catch why can't I remember their show? The Hangover last night. But apparently I was quoted saying something that I have never said by Brian Anthony Davis. And I'm like, and Thaddeus emailed me this morning. I wake up to an email from Thaddeus saying, hey, Brian said that you said this, And I didn't think it was right, but because you said it, I was thinking it might have been right. It was about the first big signing that the Steelers had in free agency was actually GM Kevin Colbert. That they announced that he had a new contract. And Brian quoted me as saying that Colbert's contract was finishing up at the beginning of the league year. And that's not the case. Because when it comes to the GM, the contract runs through the draft. Because that would just be a nightmare to say, oh, now we got to bring in a new GM as we are halfway through our draft prep or farther through. So that was just some. Brian's like, oh, I'll say something. Like, I'll say something the show tonight.
Head coach contracts end after the Super Bowl. Your GM contracts end after the draft.
After the draft, yep. And it might have been that Brian remembered that I had said it, but he couldn't remember when it was, that it was the league year versus the draft. But yeah, they still had some time to get that done with Colbert, but it's good to know that he's sticking it through the next
Hold on.
season.
We got one of the blokes calling out Thaddeus here. Yeah.
Say that's rather tattletale-y.
Yes.
No, it wasn't tattletale. Thaddeus honestly wanted to know if that was the case. That's what he was asking. And I said, no, his contract ran through the draft. He's like, that's what I thought. So yeah. And I don't mind people email me and ask me questions. I really don't. I'm going to say it here. I'm always looking for questions for the Steelers Stat Geek podcast that airs on Thursday mornings. I already have one that I'm working through. Here's a good one. I'll tease it for those of you out there. It's about the Steelers and how many points they've surrendered their last 3 playoff games and how that, falls in NFL history.
People have asked us questions that have turned into entire shows. So.
Exactly. So that's why I'm always asking for stat geeky questions for that show. So that's why I'm always encouraging people. Email me, hit me up on Twitter. As you can see here on the screen, if you're here watching live on YouTube or Facebook, where my Twitter is STLR SuperFanDad. And my email was just you add at gmail.com to that. And it's the email because I'm always looking for stats questions for that show. Because it's driven by questions. That's what I want to do. I could just, I could throw out a bunch of random stats, but I really want to know what you all want to know. So that was just something to clarify because that was the Steelers' first big move that they made. So let's dive into what's transpired so far with the Steelers, because we're sitting here in the midst of a very interesting period of the season. So we might as well just focus the whole show on that is the way I look at it. And that is who the Steelers have gained, who they've lost, how they're going to handle the situation, and what kind of shape are they in, even when it comes to the salary cap. So we'll start off. So we hit Kevin Colbert.
Yes.
We can talk about.
Luckily, he doesn't count against the cap.
Yeah, he doesn't count against the cap. There was 2 more signings before free agency kicked off officially, because you can sign street free agents anytime. Meaning a player that was cut by another team. So the Steelers, they did not give a restricted free agent tender to Ray McLeod, but they signed him to a 1-year deal. Then the Steelers also signed center/guard BJ Finney. Brian's bringing back the pants. So we got to deal with.
I told him he was to wear them for the show on Sunday, and then I slept through the show Sunday and haven't gone back to watch. So, Brian, I hope you were wearing the pants you were supposed to.
Yeah,
in celebration.
So that's what the Steelers did before it all started. So you had those players come in, not counting their contracts because the numbers weren't out at the time, and actually Finney's numbers still aren't out. The Steelers were going into free agency with right around $6 million on the salary cap. Then you had Monday, and boy, did it come boom, boom, boom quick. And that was no sooner. Well, first of all, you have the Cam Sutton news that the Steelers signed Cam Sutton to a 2-year contract. It's basically the way I look at it, and I'm curious what you think about it. It's basically a good deal for the Steelers this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the opportunity to extend next year based on how everything plays out this year. Did you kind of get a feeling
Yes.
to that? Because we're going to apply this to another one later on. But yeah.
Yes, they've got that option, but it's also, even if they just wanted to just play it out next year, it's not crippling either. Especially when you consider, some of the stuff we have coming off the cap.
Yeah. So that was Cam Sutton's, and his deal ended up being, it was 2 years, $9 million. But when it came to the salary cap, it was, I'm trying to remember, so I'm going to actually have to look back.
It's a what? No, I remember it. So it's a $1 million base salary for the first year and 4.5 for the second year.
Because it was
and then split
3.5, because it was 1 million base, 3.5 signing bonus to be the 4.5 for this year, and then 4.5 just as the base for next year, which means that, all my numbers running together from all the other ones I've been looking at. So yeah, you're right. So it's 2.75 million against the cap this year. I remember this now because I did this article today. Because of the 2.75, it was 2.09 million that
actually adds to the cap
because of displacement.
Right.
So now, if you don't understand what we're talking about from displacement, well, first of all, I explain this all in an article at behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop.
Let me explain it really fast instead of your long
let's see if you can do it.
51 guys count towards the cap.
In the offseason.
In the offseason. When you re-sign Cam Sutton, he goes into one of those 51 slots, and number 51 gets bumped off the end. So it's the difference between his number and the guy that bumped off the end. That's the actual increase to the cap hit.
That is correct. That is how it all works with displacement. You are spot on, brother. So there you had that. So you had just over $2 million taken off of that cap. Then Ray McLeod's numbers came in there, and with his deal supposed to be $1 million, which means his replacement was $340K. So I had the Steelers sitting, a little bit more under the salary cap than what others were reporting today. So that's why I did an article about it, because there was conflicting reports with how much the Steelers had with the salary cap. But then that all changed. But that's beside the point. Then you had the Steelers' first free agent loss, and then instantly within minutes it was another one. So much so we only did one article with it on the website because they happened so fast. And that was the signing of Bud Dupree to the Titans and Matt Feiler to the Chargers.
Yep.
What was your initial thoughts on those?
Look, let me just say this. And I actually was watching and saw the Dupree one break. And my thought was, Bud, he got his money. I mean, he's getting $16.5 million average per year over 4 years. There's 5 years. There's whatever.
Yeah.
Was it 5 years?
Yeah,
I thought it was 4 years. Whatever it is, I was just like, Steelers weren't going to be able to get anywhere near that. No. He deserved that money.
Yeah. And
but now he's going to be expected to earn that money.
Yes.
So and the next thing to watch.
You know how Pro Football Focus has always been anti-Bud Dupree, because they of course come out and say about how that was the most, the worst contract signed on the opening day, completely overpaid. And just so you all know, I got to tease this a little bit. I have an article tomorrow for the website looking at the Steelers' losses now already, where they line up when it comes to the compensatory formula for 2022. Already have that with where the player losses are projected. What do you think about Matt Feiler? What did you think did you think he was someone the Steelers might have brought back?
I thought maybe, but what did he end up with? He was like
$7 million.
$7 million.
It was 3 years, $21 million total, $7 million per season.
$7 million a year. I thought that was pretty high.
Yeah, I did too. But honestly, if you want to play him more, if you look at what Feiler was doing,
right? If you want to play him more,
your best bet's going to be tackle.
If he plays at tackle and plays well, you got a decent price on him. If you don't play him at tackle, I think you probably overpaid for him. But that will be up to see what the Chargers want to do with him.
Yep. And just so you know, Sean, I see your super chat. We're going to get to it when we get that far. So, so that was day one for the Steelers. You gained Sutton, which, how did you feel? I didn't think they were going to be able to afford Hilton. And I was like, if you get Sutton for that, at least he can do different things. And
that played out exactly the way I talked about it on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It really did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they did what they needed to do. They said, if you got to re-sign one, I said, you got to take care of Hilton or of Sutton first, because he gives you the lack of a better term, more versatility. Yes. Yeah. And that happened. And then I was like, then it will just come down to what is someone, Hilton's going to probably test the market a little more and see what someone's willing to give him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So that was kind of summed up day one. And then there was some kind of interesting things floating around, a cryptic tweet from Vince Williams, Zach Banner getting back on social media, which meant that something was coming there. So those were the things we were kind of waiting to see on today, Tuesday. But the next one was the one that really surprised me. To me, it was the most surprising thing of them all. It was the most unexpected of any moves involving the Steelers so far. And that was the loss of Tyson Alualu. I was really surprised by that one.
It wasn't so much the loss as that when I looked at the deal that he got, I would have thought that the Steelers could have competed with that deal.
Yeah, I do.
So I don't want to say that it was a total surprise, because I knew he was going to go out and test the market, but then he took a deal that I was like, wait a minute, the Steelers didn't come up with that. But he's going back to Jacksonville.
Yep, that's where he started.
Does he have a love of Jacksonville?
Yeah. Which
I don't know.
I wouldn't blame him.
Well, I would say this. He does have an advantage of being in Jacksonville. What's the advantage of being in Jacksonville?
I'm trying.
Which actually makes the deal sweeter than what if the Steelers would have offered him the same amount of money.
The state taxes in Florida. Isn't there? Isn't there?
What state taxes in Florida?
Exactly. Isn't that the?
There's no pay. That's correct. No payroll tax in Florida. So
yeah. So go in there, you actually save money by all that other stuff. So, which is kind of, it's kind of sad. You got to realize though that Alualu was, other than Ben Roethlisberger, he was the oldest player on the team. Well, once the Steelers cut Colquitt partway through the season, because he was up there too. But your punter almost shouldn't count for that. So that was the question. Do you want to bring back, he had I thought he had the best year of his career last year.
I thought he did too.
And everything. But at the same time, maybe going back to Jacksonville, he'll see more. Maybe he'll see more playing time than he will as in Pittsburgh, just because of how little they use the nose tackle. But now that's a position that the Steelers are going to have to address one way or the other, unless they want to roll with Buggs and Davis.
Which they very well could do.
Let those guys fight it out.
Let them fight it out on the field, not on the sideline.
So, and everything. And then not long after that, there was the news, and this was a rumor that had come up last night in the middle of Michael Beck recording his live mic, and he had to go back and start over because of some of the stuff he said, but it didn't come all the way out until today. And that was Mike Hilton signing with the Bengals. I had a feeling Mike Hilton was going. Kind of surprised he went there, because we've talked about it a bunch. Mike Hilton is a very good slot corner when used properly.
Correct.
If you think you're just going to put him in the slot and say, okay, go stop that guy in coverage.
Play our slot the way we do it.
Yeah. Then he's going to be set up to fail. And honestly, do you really trust the Bengals to use Mike Hilton in the way that's going to make Mike Hilton thrive?
Who knows?
Yeah. I'm glad he got his money.
All Kyle would tell you, all Kyle would tell you now is this. Smells like Jag.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's very interesting to see him go to the Bengals because you're like, oh, wow, the Steelers are going to have to go up against him twice a year. Yeah. I mean, I hope he does well. I hope it works out for him. But yeah, I don't really know that is Cincinnati going to let Mike Hilton be the Mike Hilton that he can be. Okay. So we're almost through this. The Steelers sign Zach Banner. That becomes official. More than what I thought. I thought there might be just the 1-year deal like last year, another kind of prove it deal.
Right.
But he won the job last year. He just got hurt right away. So the Steelers lose one player coming off an ACL injury. They sign one of their former players coming off of an ACL injury. Banner's deal was what was originally reported. I had to go back and change the numbers when it was finally, I was given a more thorough report. And that is, it was let me make sure I got it right. $9.775 million for 2 years. It was $3.25 million signing bonus, and then a $1.525 million salary this year, $5 million salary next year. So that means that his salary cap number this year is $3.15 million. And next year, let's say it doesn't work out for the Steelers, $5 million out of the less than $10 million is his base salary next year, which means that's all that
small cap hit. So
that would be.
It is a 2-year deal, but it's still a kind of
prove it deal.
Steelers have the wiggle room for it to still be a prove it deal.
Yes, exactly.
But Hulk-like.
Yes, and then just to bring up the rest of the news, which bring in Sean Super Chat, was the ultimate loss of Vinny Vidivici. Okay. Where Sean puts $5 in the tip jar and says, losing the trifecta of Alualu, Vinny Vidivici, and Hilton kills our run defense. You know what? It's funny.
I don't know if I'd use the word kill. The word I'd use there is, they might have some work to do.
The way I'm going to phrase it is kind of the way Jeffrey Benedict did, as he's like, it's going to make them change their run defense philosophy because Alualu is, to me, he's the different entity. When you're talking Vince Williams and Mike Hilton, and this might be something that Jeffrey talks about tomorrow night. I don't know if they're going to get to talk about this on the curtain call or not. But he said that once the Steelers lost to Mike Hilton, they kind of almost didn't have a need for Vince Williams anymore.
Okay.
And basically saying that you're going to have to change how you play your defense and how having Cam Sutton as your slot corner changes up, how you're doing. I wish I could sum up the way that he said it, but he was basically saying he was not surprised by them moving on from Vince Williams because they're basically not going to be able to run their defense. It's not that it's going to be worse. It's just not going to be the same. Okay. So, and
same from a schematic standpoint.
And then the question was ultimately going to be, were the Steelers better off with Bush and Spillane than they were with Bush and Williams? And if so, why are you paying so much money for Williams when the Steelers, by releasing him, they save $4 million on the salary cap? Is that kind of the way you were thinking about it?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
And I'm still not against if you got the right guy there at 24. Sorry, 24. I had Michael Jordan on the brain there.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get the Steelers pick, if the right guy's there, that you're like, oh my gosh, this is a guy we got to get in pair with Devin Bush, then you feel good about doing it.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while. Michael Beck was first on this one. Shannon White was all over this. I've been all over this. I convinced Brian Anthony Davis of this. We are all on the Zaven Collins train. That's the linebacker out of Tulsa. I did this. And what's funny is Michael Beck shared a graphic about how he, according to Pro Football Focus, he had the best coverage score of a linebacker in college since 2014. And I can't remember who that player was. And I'm like, but what's funny, because when I had him when I did the profile of him for Mock Draft Monday, it wasn't yesterday, Monday, it was the week before. I had some people saying, oh, well, he's a liability in coverage. No, he's not. He's like the best coverage linebacker they've seen in college in almost a decade. So he's a player that's out there that's just a playmaker. But and I know, okay.
I want to bring up Marky D says, Vince's leadership will be missed. Yes, it will. It will. Yeah. He's been a veteran presence in the middle of the field. However, next year Devin Bush is in year 3. Does Devin Bush become more of that veteran leadership in the middle of the field? We'll see. Yeah.
Exactly. And Andrew Wolbar brings up, he's like, Spillane is good enough. We do not need to take one in round 1. I'm going to bring up something. No, you don't need to. But I've said this with a lot of other things, and that is, how many times have we mentioned a position that the Steelers are going to look to draft? But then the answer was, but not in round 1, Right. That's kind of how I feel about running back, is like the running back position, regardless of player, is just so difficult to take in round 1 anymore in the NFL. Center. Everyone's like, got to go with the center. None of the centers are really that guy at 24. Nope. So like, I'd really want a center, but not in round 1. So you look at all these not in round 1, and I'm like, the Steelers are going to do something different in round 1. And I almost don't want to get into this before the break. I'm not going to. I'm going to bring up Sean's, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to get into. What we're going to get into in the second half here.
Okay.
Something that I'm going to bring up. But Sean throws another $5 into the tip jar. Thank you, Sean. He says, "Can we bring back Lavon Kirkland?" You know what?
I love Lavon Kirkland.
Who didn't love Lavon Kirkland?
I love that guy.
It's just the NFL is playing so different anymore. And the more I was thinking about it, I was saying this to Brian Anthony Davis last Thursday. I'm like, if the Steelers went out and got another, Devin Bush at inside linebacker and basically ran their defense through having speed, coverage, all this other stuff, I mean, it could change everything that they do. It could take everything next level. So I don't know that Lavon Kirkland, how do you think Lavon Kirkland, I'll ask you this before we go into the break. How do you think Lavon Kirkland would play out in today's NFL?
I don't know how well you remember, but Lavon Kirkland was faster than what you thought he was.
Yeah, he was.
And part of that was just because he was so big. You just didn't realize he had. I mean, he was to the linebacker position like Jerome Bettis was to the running back position. Mm-hmm. Like, Jerome Bettis had those kind of quick feet and that kind of that quick shiftiness or whatever. And Lavon Kirkland was like that at a size at linebacker. I'd say this. Mm-hmm. Kirkland, he'd find a way to make it work.
Yeah. So
I thought that much of him, and I still do. And that guy, he'd have found a way. He'd have found a place for himself in the league, even though it's a little different than when he was playing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's funny because that's what a lot of people are saying. Vince Williams is a player.
Melvin says Lavon was more quick than he was fast. And you know what, Melvin? I kind of agree with you there, which made him not a huge liability in coverage when he was having to cover tight ends across the middle and things like that. I would say Lavon Kirkland, though. I wouldn't the same way with Vince Williams. I don't want him covering an Eric Ebron type tight end, running long down the seam.
Yeah.
Lavon Kirkland couldn't do that.
But a lot of people said Vince Williams would have been better off playing in the NFL 10 years prior than what he was. Before we roll out, it's funny because I said that about Zaven Collins, and Steelers Pittsburgh says the Oracle was quoted as saying, "Don't fall in love with the draft player before he gets drafted." Absolutely. I'm intrigued by him, and I'm doing all I can to not fall in love with him to try to take my own advice. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to throw my idea out to you to get your thoughts about what the Steelers, where they sit now with what they've lost, and looking at this upcoming draft. I'm going to give you two sides of the story about how the Steelers need to go into this draft, or how the Steelers will go into this draft philosophically, and how it's actually going to play out when it comes to the 2021 season. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk more about the reminiscing some of these players lost and how the Steelers are going to continue with free agency. And we're going to open it up to a little bit more to the live chat when we come back. So if you're listening on the audio side, go ahead and flip to part 2. If you're here with us on YouTube or Facebook, we'll be back in just a few seconds. And we're back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. I am Dave Schofield, co-editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. With me, as always, my big brother, Rich. Still doing good, Rich?
Just doing great.
All right. Well, it's funny. This was something I wanted to talk about a little bit because the Steelers, they've lost some players. What are they, and I'm still wearing the hat. I'm still wearing the 19 hat because as of right now, I know there might be other news coming out there with stuff going on with one Juju Smith-Schuster. Heard some interesting rumblings with him that there might even be a 1-year deal with him on the table from the Steelers, that he's out looking at other stuff. Interesting to see how that really plays out. We'll see how that goes. But we've got some other players that the Steelers could still lose in free agency. There's a lot of players that are unrestricted free agents that we just don't know what's going to happen. So these are just the ones that we know of as of 9:00 on Tuesday. But it's also going to shape with stuff with the draft. And it's interesting because Michael Beck wrote an article. It was going to run today, but we had too much breaking news. It's scheduled to run tomorrow morning, which is the exact opposite of an article that I was going to have run Monday, but I was feeling a little bit under the weather on Sunday. And Jeff says, don't worry about it. Hold that for another time. Completely opposite ideas. Michael's article was in regards to the 2021 Steelers are only going to go as far as their rookie class carries them. My article was, don't look for the 2021 draft to save the Steelers season, because the Steelers have holes and, they got to address certain things in the draft. I'm going to just remind people some stuff. I had people disagree with me and try to bring up other examples. I'm like, you're looking at it hindsight. You've got to look at the time they drafted them. And people try to bring up other examples. And I'm trying to say, you're thinking of how it played out as a rookie season, not what the Steelers thought of it going into it.
Yeah.
And that is the last player, other than maybe Colin Holba, who then didn't make the team. The last player that the Steelers drafted and instantly penciled in as a starter was Ryan Shazier. And Kevin Colbert said afterwards, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that to him. Although, he had a lot of injuries and stuff like that it was a mistake. The Steelers don't draft week 1 starters. If you really want to know what the Steelers are going to do in the draft, look at their 2022 needs. Because look at what they did in 2020. They drafted Chase Claypool, who basically they needed a wide receiver for if they lost Juju. They drafted Alex Highsmith, who was
insurance,
who was the backup player and was going to be there in case they lost Dupree. Things of that nature. People are like, oh, well, what about Devin Bush? Devin Bush is the closest that you get since Ryan Shazier that they would have done it. But they specifically went out and signed Mark Barron so they didn't have to start Devin Bush right off the bat. That's why they did it. But the thing is, Devin Bush was just better, and that's why he got on the field. TJ Watt. People are like, oh, TJ Watt started all those games his rookie year. He wasn't supposed to. Why do you think James Harrison got mad and pouted and got his way out of Pittsburgh and got to go to New England? Because he was supposed to be the starter while TJ Watt was easing into it, and TJ Watt was just better than him. So they started Watt. And that's why Harrison got mad.
Right.
Terrell Edmonds started 15 games as a rookie. That's because Morgan Burnett got hurt and ended up being terrible. That wasn't the plan at the draft when they drafted these players. Right. So now they, because of it being the way it is with the salary cap and everything else, it might be different this year. But if you're looking at it with the Steelers, that's generally not what they do. So I think you're going to see a lot of lower end free agents signed here coming up. What do you think about that, Rich? I kind of went off for a little bit.
Yeah, they will. They'll get in and sign some other, journeyman type players to fill out their roster, guys that a couple of them with the opportunities to come into camp and actually win a spot. Or potentially hope they win a spot. There was some talk. There was some talk, when the Steelers re-signed BJ Finney, is he expected to come in and be the answer at center for us?
No,
not necessarily.
No,
but it'd be nice if he could be.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you're saying, hey, we've got to, let's say you do draft the center somewhat high in the draft, meeting in the first 2 days. But you don't know that they'll be ready to take over right away. You at least have someone that you've, between him or Hassenauer. I'd still rather them find another free agent out there personally, but I know what you're meaning there.
Yeah. So we're not going to be able to find anybody that's going to come in and start for us that's going to be game-changing talent because we don't have that money.
Yeah. Yep.
What we will be looking for bargain guys who could come in and be solid. And if we get lucky in our scheme, they turn into that big time kind of player.
Yes. Yep. So sorry, I'm getting a lot of people firing up in the live chat. This one up. Yep. Yep, I hit the right one. There it is. You think they could re-sign Avery Williamson? I'll tell you this. Every day that goes by that he's not signed by somebody else is a bigger chance that Pittsburgh could get him back. Michael Beck is saying this. He's like, with the lower salary cap and all these big contracts going out, things are going to bottom out.
They're going to be
some bottom out.
And maybe that's what the Steelers realize is going to happen.
And they're just going to come
eventually it's going to bottom out, and they're going to get some good bargains on decent players later.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So,
look,
that's
I know
what I said. It would have to be for the right price.
Look, I know people are wondering why we're not out there making a splash, why we're not doing those things. Well, first of all, even when we have more money, we don't make a lot of big splash in free agency. Steelers never have. It's not been really their way.
Yeah.
They've always waited longer and gone for that and gotten more middle of the road kind of guys.
Yeah.
That just seems to be how they operate. So, I don't know if anybody out there in our live chats or is a part of the Hampton Roads Steel Blood Facebook group. But people were on there just freaking out today.
Mm-hmm.
Because we weren't making any moves. We weren't signing folks. And I'm just like, do you all not pay attention? Really, what's so different so far about this free agency period for the Steelers than most other free agency periods for the Steelers?
Yeah, that's what it really, really is coming down to. You're right. That this is how it's going to go. But when we're in the middle of it, it's kind of like in the draft when you know that It's between the Juju Smith-Schuster and Cam Sutton picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, the Steelers need a corner. The Steelers need a corner. Why'd they take a wide receiver? Well, guess what? It was coming eventually. I feel that's like we are right now. Real quick, Andrew Wilbar says, I remember 2016. This is about my whole notion of people being penciled in to start week one. Burns, Davison, and Hargrave were all starting. Here's what it was with the 2016 Steelers. You had, let's see, who were the corners that they had? Let's see, they had Cockrell and Willie Gay, but he was more playing slot. You had Mike Mitchell. Who was the other safety that they had? They had Robert Golden as safety some too. And you had someone like, who was it, Ricardo Matthews? It was someone else that could play nose instead of Hargrave. None of those guys. And you had Shamarko Thomas at safety at the time back then. So it was when they were drafted, the plan wasn't that they had to start right away. But they all ended up getting into the starting lineup based off their play. Hargrave was the one that started right away, believe it or not, because he was the one they couldn't keep off the field. So, yeah,
and actually, I remember, I think you and I talking about that as that preseason went on. We were just like, they're going to have to start him.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have to.
And I remember listening, it was like to Tunch and Wolf in the locker room in the show that they had. They're like, oh, Hargrave's got the best chance to start because, the Steelers could use him there. And I'm pretty sure he was the one who started week one. So, and everything.
But just to be clear again, it's not saying that we don't start guys.
Yeah.
But we don't plan to start guys. They have to push to where it's tough to keep them off the field. Kind of like we thought so when we had a young a rookie this year who was, started some games on the offensive line that then we were a little surprised we didn't keep him out there because of how well he was playing.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up in just a minute. But I'm going to mess this name up. Myrna, Jane, and Bert, did I say that right? Said Pouncey started day one. Pouncey didn't start day one. Pouncey started week one. Pouncey was not, and Pouncey was, they were going to possibly have him start off at guard as a rookie. And he was just another one of those guys that was just too good to keep on the field. But you also got to remember,
he was so much better than, who was the other center we had then?
Oh, it was,
who was it supposed to be?
He had played for Detroit.
Yeah, right? I remember. And it was another one of those where it was just where the difference in play was just so much in Pouncey's favor. It's like, we have to start this guy because he's so much better than what we have. And that's the Steelers' philosophy then. They draft guys hoping they don't have to start them right off the bat in year one. But if they prove that they are the best option to do that, how do you say no?
Exactly. You bring these guys in, you have them there. You hope that you can, but you're not putting all your eggs in the rookie basket. It might be different this year, though. It really might because of the way everything's going with the salary cap. Also, Marquise Pouncey doesn't exactly count because that wasn't since Ryan Shazier. I was saying Shazier was the last one, but that's just kind of just my whole little thing of what the Steelers like to do with the draft. So that's why I'm saying I still think there's lots of moves coming. But there's also going to be more departures, as we know this. So we're kind of saying, can the Steelers go through? Can they overcome their losses? Yeah. Which loss so far is the hardest to overcome right now? Do you think, Rich?
I'm probably going to lean in and say Alualu.
I'm going to agree. He's out of the 4 losses and the 1 cut. He's number 1 for me.
He's the one. Now, do I think it could happen? Yes, I do. But it's the one that I'm most skeptical about.
Yeah.
And the one that I'm most worried that even if we get him replaced with Buggs or Davis, are we going to see a huge drop off in play?
My question is
that it has the big, that has the best possibility to be the biggest drop off in play.
I think if that's the case, you're going to see the biggest drop off in usage. Meaning, I think the Steelers
Correct.
will go with more sub package. Even if they don't have a strong nose tackle, they just
Correct.
won't play a nose very much.
Yeah, the nose tackle will get 12 snaps.
Yeah, so that's what is still there. It's always about cost above replacement. The Steelers, they kept. If you'd have lost Hilton and Sutton, you'd have been in trouble. They kept Sutton. They lost Hilton. Not surprisingly, they lost Bud Dupree, but they drafted Alex Highsmith last year, and like I said, he's not Bud Dupree yet, but I still think he was better than Bud Dupree as a rookie. I think Jeffrey Benedict disagrees, but I think I get more people that agree with me. Matt Feiler, what's that?
You only said that because Jeffrey's not in the live chat.
Oh no, you'd be surprised. He might be in there. He might be there. He just sometimes is in there and quiet. But,
if you're in there, Jeffrey,
I don't
protect yourself.
Let's just say this. It's not that Jeffrey disagreed. He said, I'm going to have to go back and study that one. He didn't want to jump on that conclusion right away. But to me, I still believe that Alex Highsmith as a rookie was better than Bud Dupree as a rookie. But Bud Dupree with raw athleticism. It took him a while to get there.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. Bud Dupree as a rookie was a better he was just a total athletic freak. What I saw from Alex Highsmith was him using his athletic ability, but also gaining more knowledge of the scheme and what it was that was expected of him. There
exactly.
You go. Yeah. He's so it can be in some ways a little tough to compare.
Yes. So that's where that one comes in. Let's see what Feiler. To me, keeping Feiler at guard wasn't going to be their best option because, frankly, Dotson was better last year. If you're talking about moving him back to tackle, that could have made sense. But honestly, not for $7 million a season.
Correct.
Not for $7 million a season. So apparently, Big Al is not out of the question of a return. That was interesting to hear about. You just don't know with any of this stuff. So we're talking now, and next Tuesday it's going to be a whole nother story. Just like we said last Tuesday, how different it was going to be. Okay, so the Steelers have losses, and guess what? Buckle up. There's going to be more losses. And you're like, what are they doing? What all these people are? They were never going to be big spenders. Yeah,
just was thinking about something. I've got the perfect answer since the Steelers lost Alualu. I know it would make one Jeffrey Bartholomew Hartman just thrilled to death. And we could get a hold of Big Dan again.
Go back and get Big Dan. Yeah. That would be a Steelers move. I was a little bit bummed because I wanted to see the Steelers bring back someone like a Kelvin Beachum, but he signed back with Arizona. I
don't blame him there. Good for you.
Yeah, Michael Beck was all over, was it Lindsay, the center, the all-pro center that was released from Green Bay? He went to the Chargers for like boatloads of money. We're like, they were never going to get him. But there was another center that was released, Pro Bowl center, I can't remember his name, from the Raiders that was released today. So that could be, the Steelers have options of people out there. You're going to see them make some moves. It's just not going to be big, flashy stuff right away. So I'm still looking for the extensions. That's what I want to see. I want to see
the Steelers are going to do something at some point. You're going to be like, oh, hey, that's not bad. That'll fill that hole.
Yeah. So the Steelers need to do something more at tackle. More than just right now. They got Banner and Chooks. That's it. That's all they have.
That's it.
That could, they're going to need to do well. They have 4 other guys all from the practice squad from last year. That's it. So you're talking something in free agency and probably still addressing at some point in the draft, things like that. So there's still more stuff to be done. So our thing is all hope is not lost. The sky is not falling. It is sad because those 2020 Steelers that had that amazing 11-game win streak to start and all the fun and the great ride that was at the time, when it was over, that you knew this team was never going to be the same. And as you can see, there's already key pieces gone. So we got another $5 from Just Me. Says, I'm training my grandson for an O-line right now. He won't be available for another 18 years. Just don't tell his mom. Great show, guys. Go Steelers.
Just Me. Good luck on that. I had a younger brother I was trying to train for the O-line to be, pro football, and just couldn't convince him it was worth, going for. And by the way, I only have one brother, so we all know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Hey, if I'm telling you, if you go play football, play the O-line, because that's where you do the hitting, not get hit. Honestly, that's what I remember.
You do the pushing and the shoving.
You do the pushing and the
shoving. You're not the one getting pushed or shoved.
Exactly. It's just it's great how it works. So, Rich, do you have anything particular you want to do for our big question tonight?
No.
You don't? Oh, Thaddeus brought up something here. He says the red flag with the Raider centers, it cost them $2 million more against the cap by cutting him. Doesn't add up. I haven't looked into that yet. That does seem kind of odd there. So if it actually cost them more against the salary cap. So very interesting. Very interesting. So I don't know. I don't really want to go a pessimistic route or anything with our big question that we kind of do at the end. But we're going to do it. I mean, the name of the show was, can the Steelers cope with their recent player losses? So we were talking about the losses. So I'm going to ask you, I mean, you kind of already answered this. I said, who's the biggest loss that the Steelers had so far of the five?
Well, if you come down to who might be the toughest to replace, I said Alualu. The one I would have liked to have seen us hold on the most was Mike Hilton.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we're going to ask you all. Don't put your answer up there yet. Just give us the name and we'll bring it up. Here it is in the chat.
Why don't you put it? There you go.
Yeah.
I like how you put it.
Who is the biggest loss so far for the Steelers, in your opinion? Okay. So.
Yep. Everybody gets their own. Break it out.
Yep. Come on, Kathy. You did it too soon. You did it too soon, Kathy. You got to type it in again. I'm not allowed to click on it. It's just how it works. Hold on. They're showing up on my phone, but they're not showing up up here.
Yeah, hold on. All of a sudden, a bunch of them like that one. Nice.
Now, they didn't spell it right, so which makes it even better. No. I think they did that on purpose. I love it. Fitner was the biggest loss. I love it. That's the ultimate troll job right there. Good job, Blitzburg.
Yeah, that actually is pretty hilarious. First one.
John C. says Tyson. Cree says Alualu. You know what? I said 5. A lot of people, I forgot about this. This is right.
Yep.
Tyler, Pouncey. Got to remember the 2 retirements too, as well.
That's right. You do.
Yeah. Dusk Thunder 9 says Dupree. Yep. Marky D says number 28.
In your programs, but number 1 in our hearts.
Yes. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Steeler Chick 46 says Alualu. Andrew Wilbar says Alualu. NDR.
Never ender.
Okay, never ender. He said Alualu. I'm not reading the second part because he cheated. Okay. Jerry Cherry Band says losing stud Dupree. Okay. Gyro says Alualu. Mark Rainey says Bud Dupree. Moneybag says Alualu. Just Me says Alualu. Steeler Nation 412 says Dupree. You know what I think some of these are?
What's that?
For me, Alualu is because it was so unexpected. I've been knowing for a long time that Bud Dupree wasn't going to be here. I mean, it doesn't mean it still doesn't.
Yeah,
okay. Go ahead. What were you going to say before I do this one?
Yeah, and I'm going to miss Bud, but ask me if I blame Bud for taking the money he was offered by the Titans. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And hopefully he's a good fit there. The Steelers do play them this year. George Teston says Bud. I can't even say the name right. Mike, yeah. They said Mike Hilton. Ryan O'Toole says Dupree. Kathy typed it in again to say Tyson. Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Todd says Dupree. Let's Toast Media says Bud. Okay.
Got a lot of Bud Duprees.
Yep. Chad Landsman says Bud. Thaddeus says Dupree. Steeler fan 74 says Alualu. Okay. Steelers Freak says Hilton first. I'm not going to read the other ones because you're breaking my rules.
Like that.
Breaking my rules. Where am I skipped. I got to do this.
Sorry,
Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
You got it. Jeff says Pouncy. Are these coming back up again? Oh, okay. I got Pittsburgh saying it again.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Derwin says Bud. Henry says Mike Hilton. He's versatile. Is he?
Is he?
He's a slot corner that can't cover.
Or
that's not really. Not that he can't cover, but his strength wasn't coverage. So I don't know that that's versatile. I think that's. I wouldn't say versatile. I would say
he had a different skill set.
Exactly. Fits a very
skill set for the position.
Exactly. That fills a very specific need that the Steelers aren't going to have, that they won't be able to scheme what he can do for them. I think it's the best way. Okay. Jordan says Hilton because of the drop off. Okay. Juan says Bud. Steelers.
Hold on. I wanted to. Mm-hmm. He said Juan Smith said Bud easily. Alex, I think it's say Highsmith not ready. Totally disagree, Juan.
Yeah, it's like you didn't watch. I mean, you saw that last year
when he hadn't even get the last name right.
So. Yeah, from a rookie. You know what I'm saying? So, and you expect a big growth for year 2. So, yeah. 666 says Dupree. Drew says it says Dupree and then Vinny Vici. Okay. King Hutchinson says Tyson. Are these coming up again? Because
some of them are popping back through. Yep. That's what's
Is there a problem with the live chat, or I don't know if people are typing them again? Okay. No. Bill Davis says duck. Duck. Okay. Some of these are good. Okay.
Yep.
These are fun. Did we get Gyro with Alualu? I'm not sure if we did that. Yeah, because these are showing up again. So because of that, I think it's time to say some people were saying that there might be some news with Juju. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I haven't seen any alerts coming through from one Michael Beck, who's usually up on these kind of things. And but we'll see. Be careful. Be careful, because there's been a lot. I better say this as we finish up. There's been many troll accounts made out there to look like to look like they are an expert, like an Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissero or one of those guys. That they make the fake account, they even steal their profile picture, and then they put out a report, and then everybody falls for it just because I think they guess it just must. They think it's funny, but
look what I did.
What's that?
That person that does that, they're like, look what I did.
Yeah, that's what they do, and it's kind of. Guess what? Looks like that's what was happening with the live chat with what someone said. Oh, the post was fake. Sorry. Yeah. There's been a bunch of those out there. So it's really easy to fall for those. So, but make sure that you are checking out our podcast. We're going to have more. I mean, next week we'll get back into some other different topics. Tonight was just more discussion about what was going on and what was happening.
The past 2 days.
Yeah, it's basically the news for the last 48 hours is what we covered the whole time. But make sure you're checking out all the podcasts. They're still coming at you strong. Make sure you check it out Behind the Steel Curtain, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Rich, any closing thoughts before I send you out of here?
You want me to think?
Yeah,
that's not my strong point. But no, just everybody, just hang tight and wait. You know, the Steelers aren't making a ton of moves right now. They'll be making their moves. They have not really gone away from what's been their postseason script for the past several years. So hang tight. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know it's just tough when you see all these other teams making zillions of moves and the Steelers are not. But we'll be okay. It'll happen.
It'll get there. Right now, we're in the midst of it, so it's really hard to tell, exactly how it's going to play out. There's going to be more losses. But you've got to trust this Steelers front office that they're going to bring it together somehow, and we'll see if it works. Hey, you know what? I'm just ready to cheer on the black and gold this far. That's what it all comes down to. This whole offseason, everything is all leading up to when we actually get the Steelers playing again on our TV sets and hopefully in person at Heinz Field.
And hopefully in person.
Yes. So that's what it's all leading up to. So remember, that's what the goal in mind is, actually seeing the Steelers on the field with these new players. Yes, we're going to miss them, but that's what it is. But until then, we'll be back next week to bring even more stuff to how the Steelers 2021 roster is shaping up.
Can't wait.